Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? What you are about to witness is real.
This is not a dream, but a new beginning.
Stand by for uplink.
The Don Hanston Show, straight up.
Thank you.
GPS uplink now completed with Google Earth. Commencing the official countdown in 3, 2, 1.
And now your hosts, Don and Sal.
Letitia James has been called on to step down. Wait till you hear what's coming out of our oceans. And they blasted Katy Perry into space. This is the Don Hanston Show, straight up. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to hit that like button. Welcome to the show, Don. How are you?
Good morning. How is everyone today?
Everybody's doing good. And hello to our producer, Marcel. Can't forget about him. He gets really mad if we do. Well, we have a lot to talk about this morning. Yeah, don't want to go through that again. Got a lot to talk about this morning, Don. Did you have a story or something that we were talking about? What do you have on your plate?
I'm all over the board here. One thing that's very important to me, and I don't want to get off the news topic.
Yeah.
Is health, right?
Okay.
Health. It seems like that seems to be a hot spot for everyone. I know that's. I had to postpone several, vacations because of everyone's health.
Yeah.
And a lot of things are not going in the direction that it should, and I think that the big problem with health is, like I've said about in past podcasts, is insurance companies don't make money unless you're paying those maximum premiums. Mm-hmm. Pharmaceutical companies don't make money unless you're prescribed all of their poisons. Hospitals don't make money unless those beds are full. Doctors don't make money, unless you have to see them. And it's all a giant game to keep you unhealthy. And it's real. What's interesting about this thing is all of the people that I see that are failing are following all the doctors' ideas.
Yeah.
They're all following the hospital protocols. They're all following the medical books. And then when it falls into my lap where I have to help these people, I have to go to what they would call unconventional medicine, which is basically naturalistic. And 90 to 95% of the time it works. The times that it doesn't work is when these people are so glued to, well, that's not what the doctor said, or that's not, that's not what this book said. And so I think the indoctrination is really what's destroying a lot of us. And I think that one thing that I just recently did, and it's kind of interesting here, is I did a extremely expanded blood panel test, which doctors won't do because the insurance companies won't cover it, and they don't want you to identify illness before it's an actual problem. But anyways, so all my numbers were off the charts great, everything, except there was a couple things identified, and so I was, okay, what do I need to do? And they wouldn't have shown up in a regular blood test because they don't look at it as in depth as somebody with that wide of a range of a blood panel. So these are problems before they're problems that you see with the blood. Anyway, so I was doing all my research and talking to my my natural docs and everything else about this stuff. And what it turns out is a lot of this stuff is really natural stuff that we could handle, right? Sunlight, right? You got to be out in the sun. You got to get that vitamin D, right? Mm-hmm. All of the Wi-Fi, we really should have everything directly connected into our house with an Ethernet cable, because all of that Wi-Fi and 5G is basically radiation, and a lot of that's why a lot of people either have cancer or cognitive problems. Okay,
well, that's all over, even when you're outside, right?
Exactly.
Everything.
The air, the water, it's a lot of natural stuff. Even the light bulbs, the LED, we all have LED light bulbs, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to pay a lesser cost for electricity and have better lighting. Well, all of that LED is horrible for you. You really should go back to the regular old school bulbs. It goes on and on with the stuff that's really simple, but it's been created, the blue light, right, through the phones and through the computers, how that's been used to basically program us, right? And so a lot of these have massive problems for people with cognitive decline when they have the blue light and the phone. So I don't know what's going to happen for our youth, but a lot of these things are very natural things that we could control. A lot of these things we don't want to control because we think, oh, you know what, I'm going to do this. So a lot of it's not necessarily what they say it is. And obviously a lot of it's got to do with the food, the air, and the water that we drink. So, it's all, the contaminants and the things that we shouldn't have. But it's really interesting is most of the stuff you can control, but we all want to go to the doctors. We all want to go to the hospitals. We all want to do everything that they say in order to stay healthy. And you can completely stay away from that if you're cognizant of the fact that it's really in your hands to keep you healthy. I mean, if you got to go to a doctor to get some ideas, maybe, but a lot of times we go to a doctor and all they're doing is treating symptoms anyways.
Well, I definitely don't see anything proactive or preventative anytime you want to go to the doctor because the insurance companies won't cover it, like you said. So it's like they don't want you to be healthy. And we've all been raised thinking, follow what the doctor says. I mean, just look at the things they told us when we were kids, which they've done a complete turnaround on now that we're older. There's just so many things that they said, finish everything on your plate, finish what you're eating. And now that you're older, it's like you don't want to finish all your food, eat less. I never heard anything about LEDs versus incandescent bulbs. That's pretty interesting. Obviously, Wi-Fi, we didn't have that growing up. But there was just something the other day I was talking about. Like, remember when you would go eat and then they'd say you can't go swimming for 45 minutes after because you'll get cramps and you could drown? I mean, when you look at it now, it's just the dumbest stuff they told us. So, I mean, we've always been raised to listen to what the doctor says, but it's funny now how they go against all these things now. But I wonder if they'll look into that.
Well, and what's interesting, too, is if you look at the older people, right, they will not do anything that the doctor says that they shouldn't do, right? Mm-hmm. Or they will not. They're always going to follow the directions of a doctor, right? I'm the opposite. If the doctor tells me and I'm questioning, why does he want me to do that and what's going to happen if I do that? And so it goes back to everything we talk about. We're not saying that we're always right. We're not trying to press anyone to think the same way we think. No two people think alike. But what it boils down to is if it's alternate to what your thought is, dig deeper, look a little bit further, do some digging, get some credible data, implement some things in your life. And a lot of these things, people will not take the time. They want the magic pill, and they're not willing to change for betterment. And I'm not saying everyone needs to. Mm-hmm. I got an interesting response from a very dear friend of mine that I was over visiting with him, and we were talking, and he's like, he's a higher end corporate guy. He's, top notch corporate guy, and he said, I really should work out. He goes, but I don't. He goes, I really should, straighten up my diet. He goes, but, I like to go to these restaurants. And he goes, it's creamy and delicious. I don't want to give that up. And I said, wow, it's very cool to hear somebody, at least they acknowledge the fact that they know that it's not necessarily good, but it's what they're choosing to do. Where a lot of people will just ignore or turn a blind eye to these things that are deteriorating them. And so I found it very refreshing that somebody is doing something that is not really good for them, but they're aware of it. Okay, yeah. They're aware of what it does to you. So the whole thing is really interesting. And when you look at all of these pharmaceutical drugs, okay, and what are they really doing? Did we have pharmaceutical drugs how many years ago? No. Okay. It was basically like even the Indians, the Native Americans. Okay. What did they use? They used herbs, right? They used things that were grown out of the ground, animals and stuff like that. And so we're turning to these poisons to make us better. Like, how does that make any sense? And obviously I know that there's a time and there's a place for like an antibiotic. There's time and there's a place for a lot of this stuff, but not long term. And the more you research this stuff, the more you realize that all this stuff is nothing more than agreement. Even the aging thing, that's nothing more than agreement. When people say, oh, you can't do this anymore, you can't do that anymore, you can't play hockey anymore. I still play hockey, okay? I'm gonna be 60 this year. My one very, very good friend, he's gonna be 72 this year, okay? Mm-hmm. He plays like he could play on a college team. That's how good this guy is. So it's all agreement. Where a lot of people will stop skating in their 30s, be like, I'm too old for this. I can't handle it. All these injuries and this and that. Well, there's some truth to that, right? You do have injuries, you do have breakdowns, but there's natural fixes to it. A lot of guys will go in and say, I got to get a knee surgery or a knee replacement or this or that. I've done prolotherapy to my knees probably 80 times. I got better knees than probably most 20-year-old kids. So there's a lot of natural fixes. And I didn't mean to get off on a tangent, but it's really important for us to take care of ourselves and quit not only listening just to these doctors, but to have your own input. You're really your own doctor. And, I used to have a little bit, not a lot, more credibility with these doctors, but the coronavirus really showed me what that's all about. They're just about following the protocols in the system. When they were pushing everyone to get the corona shots, then I realized they're all on the same payroll, and that really took the steam out of me as far as trusting doctors or medical institutions.
Well, I think we could have a whole show just on this topic.
Oh my God, there's so much information.
Maybe you could book an expert, and I'd like to be interested in hear what they have to say. I mean, I know a lot of the foods that we eat aren't that good for you anymore and everything, but I think everybody out here, though, I don't think it's anything special to have someone say, well, I know I should work out. Well, I know I shouldn't eat that. Everybody is thinking that, but is everybody saying it? That's the thing. I think anybody out there who is morbidly obese, not working out, when you would talk with them, they'll be the first ones, well, at least in their mind, they're going to say, yeah, I should be watching what I'm eating. No, I shouldn't go out to the bar tonight drinking again. I think you start to realize that as you get older and things start to fail. But to sit there and to admit it, I guess, is a different story. And you know what? The one person you can't lie to is your doctor when you go in there.
Well,
you can't lie to the doctor.
What's interesting about it is you can choose to be the cause or the effect. And the people that will come up with excuses why. I can't work out because this, or I can't eat this because of that.
Part.
Right. That's just being the effect of what's happening to you, which means basically you're gonna deteriorate with your environment, right?
Yeah.
And the person that says, you know what, I should work out, I'm not working out. Maybe they're not doing it now, but maybe when they get to a crossroads where they need to, where all of a sudden their health depends upon that, changing their diet or exercising or whatever. Sometimes there's a reason for people to make that cognitive change, right? Where they actually say, I knew that I should have been dieting better, and this is what it's come to, so maybe now is time. Because sometimes people don't want to fix things until it's broken. And I'm the opposite, you know what I mean? I'm going to change the oil in my car and keep the air in the tires and check the fluids. And I want to make sure that when I get in that car, it's going to run and it's not going to break down. Where a lot of people, they won't. They don't even give a shit about any of that stuff. And then when it breaks, they want to fix it.
Well,
it's kind of like
your body starts to give out, though, Don, after a while. I mean, your knees, the cartilage, and everything else, and people can't do the things that they used to do when they were younger. I know just going out to ride my bike when the weather turns, my knees start to go, my back starts to go. And it's not that I don't want to do it. It's just that because I'm getting older and the cartilage in the knees and all that other stuff starts happening. How are you supposed to prevent all that stuff? I don't know. But
well, there is an answer to that, though. I mean, it's every step that you get to, there's a little bit higher learning curve to get to, right? Because I was in that same spot. Okay, my knees gave out to where I couldn't even stand up. Okay, I didn't get a surgery. I've done probably 80 prolotherapies in my left knee. It's good as gold. Same thing with my back. The only thing that I did have to replace is my right hip. My right hip I had to replace because it was so badly shot, and I'm one of those idiots, I don't feel pain, that I played hockey with a bad hip for, I don't know, 15 years, and it got so bad that there's no way that any type of prolotherapy would work because it wasn't round anymore. There's a lot of bone spurs and stuff. So I had to have that replaced. But anyways, it's really interesting because every level you get to, you what happens is you run into that agreement, just like what you said, you know, with age, you know, your knees hurt. Well, of course they do. There's been wear and tear. There's things that you have to be proactive about if you want to get past that. Or you can just choose to be the effect and say, well, I'm old and I can't do this, or I will do it, but it's going to hurt. So, again, I'm one of those people where if you take the accountability, you can always figure out a way.
Well, the health segment of our show. Thank you.
There you go. Sorry about that, guys,
Oh, no.
if you didn't want to hear that.
No, I think we should do this every show, bring up a little health update. I think people are interested in this topic. You know, I mean, it's something different. It's something that affects everybody, which a lot of stuff in the news isn't really affecting everybody, you know, unless you're a foreign country or something. But I like the health topics, and I think we should address that in the future as well. You know, maybe let the listeners know what we're going to talk about or something, because it's definitely very interesting. And if you could have one of your friends come on the show maybe and talk with us about some of this stuff. I know you have a doctor friend. I'd be interested
I got a lot of them. Yeah.
getting him to come out here and see what he has to say. I would have a lot of questions for him. But that's an interesting topic for sure.
Yeah, I actually do have a lot of doctors that are natural doctors. I have medical doctors that are friends. I have all different, you know, varieties of people in the medical industry that I'm very good friends with. So it's kind of interesting because you kind of get a mix. But when you really listen to all these people, you realize that the people with the higher understanding are the people that are least amount indoctrinated.
Well, we'll have to have them on. Maybe you could have
They're
all
more
three of them on.
self-educated than institutionally educated. Those are the ones with their belief system so much greater than somebody that's got, you know, 25 years at, you know, medical you know, schooling or whatever. The people that have always searched for the truths, what works, what doesn't, type of thing. But not to get off of this subject and what you talked about, the other things actually do affect us, okay? The things that a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about, they affect our pocketbooks, right? Yeah. They affect our health, our physical health, our mental health, right? And I think a lot of our mental health really has to do with uncertainties. When things are not when things are not certain, right? Whether you know where it gets to the point where you don't even know if you're a boy or a girl, right? And I'm using that one and I shouldn't, but you know, but when things are so confused, that's where people start having these mental breakdowns. That's where people have these question marks, and when you run into question marks that you can't resolve, it takes away the certainties. And when you don't have certainties, it takes you away from your awareness. And the further you are from your awareness, the further you are from anything that's real, right?
Well,
and it's what's real to you, and what's real to you is you don't really know. Well, the uncertainty is what's real to you.
I think if people have any comments or anything, leave them in the show. You know, let us know. Leave your comments. Let us know if you like this topic, if you want to hear more, or if you have any questions, you can address them to Dr. Don over there. I'm sure he'll get the answer for you.
Over here.
He'll get the answer for you.
All right.
Very interesting. Before time is up, I know we got about 10 minutes to go. Real quick, I know Donald Trump just called on Letitia James to step down because I guess she lied on some real estate documents, which I thought was interesting because she was going after him for the last 2 years about real estate transactions. So she supposedly lied and said that she was the principal resident of a dwelling, and it turned out that she wasn't. So looks like the witch hunt might be turning around. Other than that, the only other story I had, really, two other ones, is that they're starting to look at the UAPs and UFOs again, and they're saying a lot of Navy generals are coming out saying that they're seeing these crafts coming out of the ocean, and they're saying that there's still no propulsion on these things. They're saying that they definitely could outpace, outmaneuver, and outperform anything that our military has. So I don't know what these things are. So they're looking into that again. I think we should have a whole show on that. Maybe get an expert out here on that.
So is that the same on the same lines with the drones that were lurking around that nobody seemed to know what the hell
I would
they were?
think so, but now what they're doing is they're saying that these things are coming out of the oceans, which I've heard before. They've said that years before, and they keep talking about it, but I guess it just keeps happening. Now they're wondering, does it have anything to do with China or Russia? But they don't think it does because of the propulsion and stuff and the way it moves and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'll definitely have to follow that. Also, one side note, I have no updates on the Epstein case or the JFK case that they kept teasing. There's been no updates on that. So as soon as we have some updates, I'll definitely let you guys know.
I think those, I like I've said in the past, and I know I sound very skeptical, but those there's too many prominent people involved in that stuff. They're not. It's already either been edited or thrown away or discarded. I don't think those. You got 80,000 pages and you can't find anything in there. It's a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
So they could talk and talk and talk, and they could reveal, even if they are revealing what was inside the secret box with this stuff. I don't think there was anything inside there.
I think they got rid of a lot of stuff.
It was manipulated. Yeah, they're not going to put the stuff that's going to actually put them behind bars or make them guilty or make the truth known in those documents. So even if they did, release all these documents, I mean, come on, the Epstein thing. If that was a credible report, okay, it would take an idiot like me about 5 minutes to go, all right, here's the people. These are the people that did this. These are the kids. These are the kids they killed. These are the kids they molested. These are the kids that they human trafficked. You'd have the whole list within 5 minutes without even looking very hard. So if you got, especially with AI right now, you could put all this information in AI and it'll spit you out a report in about like 4 minutes. Okay. And if it's been weeks upon weeks and there's nothing, come on.
I just want to know who were the players, like who were the politicians involved. That's what I want to know. You're not going to find out who the kids were. That's sealed and protected because they're minors. So you're never going to hear their names, but I want to know who was involved, who was hanging out with this guy, who was going on trips with this guy, what politicians, especially what politicians are still in office now, that we could ask questions of. That's what I would love to know.
Well, look at all the super old ones. I mean, some of these politicians are, I don't even know how old they are, but they're up there. They got to hook up, oxygen tubes up to them and make sure they keep breathing. These people are ready to croak. So it makes you pretty certain a lot of these people, there's a reason why they're still in there, and there's a reason why they haven't been, incarcerated. But that whole thing is a smoke show. As far as I'm concerned, they haven't found anything yet. They're not going to find anything. And it's unfortunate. We'd all like to know. But I think if you really kind of dial back in your head, you can kind of figure it out. It's not that difficult to figure out who would be involved and stuff like that.
I know there's certain politicians I think me and you are thinking of right now. And anybody listening to this is probably thinking the same thing.
Absolutely, and it's not just politicians. It's Hollywood. It's Hollywood elites. It's a lot of these celebrities, right? Yeah, I mean, who's the P. Diddy, and there's just so many people that were involved. I mean, and these are big money people. They're not going to allow their names to come out. They're not going to allow themselves.
You would think Hollywood would want to know. I mean, where's this Me Too movement? Which I've often asked. Where is this Me Too movement? Where have they been? It came on strong. They were trying to protect women's rights and women that were made to do things against their will. All of a sudden they're silent. We don't hear nothing. We don't hear any of the Me Too movement sticking up for men playing in women's sports. We don't hear the Me Too movement making a stink like we want to see these files. What happened to these young kids? What happened to these little girls, these little boys? Nothing. Everybody's silent. So definitely something is going on. There is a cover-up. And you know what? I really was hoping the president would pull this stuff out, and he just hasn't. I don't know why he hasn't done this. I mean, what I keep hearing is a lot of excuses. Like I said, I'll be I'm pro-Trump, but I'll be very critical of him as well. I'll be fair. I thought a lot of this stuff that he promised, yes, he's done a lot of things that he said he was going to do, but there's certain things that he hasn't done, and that's what I want to know. Why? What's going on with the JFK, like you said? Were these files? I mean, just come out and say we were missing pages. Stuff was thrown away, and we don't know
manipulated. Yeah, the file was manipulated. Just say that.
Something.
Just
so
say
we
it.
could say, okay, instead of just saying, well, we have 80,000 and more pages coming. The Epstein stuff, just want to know what's going on. Who was involved?
It makes you think about the reporting that we had in the last 4 years. Was the story was buried by the next news story. It's like you're going to forget about it once we come up with the new story. And as far as what you're talking about, the Me Too movement and all that stuff, all of those, doesn't matter if it's BLM, doesn't matter what any of that crap that was put together. It's all agenda based. When it goes against their agenda, it's something that they're not even going to talk about. And so I agree with you. I'm a little disappointed that they don't at least make something final for us and say, okay, we had 80,000 pages of JFK file out, and there's no smoke and gun, there's no names, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Obviously, these reports have been, manipulated, and we're going to put it to rest. This is the best we can do. We're sorry.
Yes,
and
right?
just put an end to it.
That's what
Don't
I
just
think.
leave it up in the air.
Say, there were 90,000 pages. We only got 80,000. We don't know what happened to the rest. We don't know what happened in all these years being handed down and locked up and whatever. So I would just like to hear something, at least come out and say it.
And probably the stuff that would be incriminating probably wouldn't take much more than about 200 pages, okay?
Yeah.
80,000 pages of bullshit? You know what I mean?
Yeah, when I looked at them, it was a lot of filler.
There's no way. Yeah.
I mean, I pulled up a few pages, and it was just garbage. So, I don't know. I guess we'll have to stick with the Warren Commission, even though I don't believe it. But we'll see.
The only thing I can say is, and I know, I'm beating this one like a dead horse, is, I'm waiting for some of these things to come out where, number one, all these people that are guilty of all this stuff, for some prosecutions to actually happen.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, then it makes me even question the Trump regime. Okay. And then the other thing is, when are we going to get a break on something with the economy, right?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm looking for, if it's not the stock market, cryptocurrency, something.
Yeah.
Something's got to give. We got to see something. And it's been tough. This economy has been tough, and we have to have enough staying power to stick around in our own businesses and whatever we're doing in order to ride the storm. And I'm very optimistic. I just don't know how soon it's going to happen. And I know that, maybe it's a lot to expect after, 4 years of ravaging this economy to make anything happen. But I'm just hoping something magical happens soon.
Yeah, I don't know. We have midterms on the way, 18 months out, and that's coming up really quick. So something better start happening. And I know a lot of people are probably going to say or leave comments or email that, a lot has already been done, and Trump's done more in the last 4 or 5 months than Biden did in 4 years. And I agree with that. But there's also other stuff that needs to be accomplished, especially before the midterms, because we don't want to lose control of the House and Senate, that's for sure. You don't want to do that. You don't want to have a lame duck president in there. So and I don't think he wants to. As we wind down and we got a few more minutes to go, I did want to explain what I meant about blasting Katy Perry into space, because I'm sure a lot of people are like, where the hell did he come up with that? Well, Blue Origin, who's owned by Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, is doing commercial flights now. And he had a flight with Gayle King, who works for CBS News. She got on the scene with Oprah, one of my favorites, and I'm being facetious. And Jeff Bezos' fiance and Katy Perry went up into space for about maybe 20, 25 minutes, 65 miles up, just so they could get the effects, feel the short-term effects of weightlessness up there. No report on how much they paid to do this, but apparently now, if you have a lot of money, you could pay Jeff Bezos with his Blue Origin to go up into space. So what I'm thinking is there's probably a lot of celebrities that they could blast up there, maybe just leave them up there, because we don't need them down here.
Well, they could lose weight too, right?
I think everybody's lighter in space. But as I guess we have another minute to go. So I'm just going to say this, it's been a great show. Don, definitely want to revisit the health stuff. Maybe we can get some guests on there. And if you like what you heard today, do us a favor, hit that like button. It's real important that you hit the like button. Give us an email if you can. Straight up, donhanston@gmail.com. We're starting to get a lot of emails in. Didn't have time to read some of them today, but maybe we'll get to some next time. Also, make sure you check out our website, straightupdonhanstonshow.com. A lot of good stuff on there. Also, check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. We're all over. No excuse. You have every outlet possible to listen to one of the best up-and-coming podcasts out there today. So, Don, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time on Straight Up, the Don Hanston Show.
Have a great day, guys.